Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something I think a lot of people can relate to. You start a diet, you're motivated, but
Mm.
it just doesn't work like you hoped.
Yeah, that frustration is really common, isn't it? And we've looked at some great stuff for this health line. Dr. Mark Hyman, Better Health Management, even a scientific paper on extreme diets, and Sandra Roycroft Davis.
Right, a real mix of perspectives. And our mission today, really, is to get past the usual eat less, move more advice and figure out what's really going on.
Exactly. We want to look at the science, maybe some of the psychology, and, what actually makes an approach sustainable or not.
So if you've ever felt stuck or just plain confused why your efforts aren't paying off, well, this is definitely for you. We're aiming to unpack some of those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So where should we start? Maybe with that idea that it's all about willpower, just trying harder. Dr. Hyman and Healthline both kind of push back on that, don't they?
They really do. And it's fascinating. Dr. Hyman basically argues that just relying on willpower, well, it's almost setting yourself up to fail because our bodies, they have these powerful ancient systems built in.
Systems to protect us.
Yeah, exactly. To protect us from what they see as starvation. Our biology is kind of still wired for scarcity, even when food is everywhere.
Okay, so when we diet hard, the body thinks.
It thinks, uh-oh, famine.
Healthline echoes this too. They talk about how the body actively fights back against weight loss.
Okay, fights back.
Oh.
Let's dig into that. Roycroft Davis talks about this too, right? This biological resistance.
Absolutely. She brings up that famous Biggest Loser study. Remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. They lost a lot of weight, but...
But their metabolism slowed down,
Boy.
way down, and stayed slow long after the show. It wasn't just temporary.
Wow.
Roycroft Davis calls it the famine response. When you drastically cut calories, your body hits the brakes on your metabolism. And worse, hormones get involved.
Hormones, like what?
Well, ghrelin, that's your main hunger hormone.
Yeah.
Its levels tend to go up.
Oh, great. So you feel hungrier.
Right. And leptin, which tells your brain you're full, its levels often go down.
So it's double whammy. Hungrier, less satisfied, and a slower metabolism.
Exactly. You're not just fighting a craving in your head. You're fighting your own biology that's screaming, eat more, conserve energy.
Okay, that makes so much sense. It's not just a lack of discipline then. So what does Dr. Hyman suggest instead of just white-knuckling it?
His approach is much more about working with your body. He says, eat enough real whole food to actually feel satisfied. Don't just starve yourself.
Makes sense.
And prioritize protein, especially at breakfast. That helps with fullness and keeps blood sugar stable.
Okay.
Also, try not to eat too close to bedtime. Like, give your body a break for maybe 3 hours before sleep, and aim for balance at meals. Protein, healthy fats, and carbs that don't spike your blood sugar too much.
Right, those low glycemic carbs.
Yeah, it's about keeping things steady, not causing those big energy peaks and crashes. Okay, that leads nicely into the next point, doesn't it? Moving beyond just how much we eat, to the quality of the food. Dr. Hyman really challenges the old calories in, calories out idea.
He does, and so does Healthline, really. They both stress that what you eat is just as important, maybe even more so, than the exact number of calories.
How so? What's the mechanism there, according to Hyman?
It's largely about insulin. Foods that spike your insulin levels quickly think sugar, white flour, sometimes even too many grains or fruits or beans for some people. They basically tell your body to store fat. Insulin's job is to move sugar out of the blood and into cells, but when there's a constant flood, it can lead to more fat storage.
And then you get hungry again faster.
Exactly. It can create this cycle of energy spikes, crashes, more hunger, and a sluggish metabolism over time. Healthline makes a similar point. Whole foods are just more filling, more satisfying than processed stuff.
And they warn about those processed health foods too, right? Things that look healthy but maybe aren't.
Yeah, definitely. You have to read labels. Sometimes things marketed as healthy are packed with hidden sugars or refined carbs.
So if we're thinking quality over just quantity, what are Dr. Hyman's principles there? What should we focus on?
He really emphasizes foods that have a very low impact on blood sugar. So nuts, seeds, good quality protein fish, chicken, grass-fed meat, eggs, lots of non-starchy veggies.
Okay.
He suggests using things like grains and beans more sparingly, maybe as a side dish rather than the main feature.
And sugar?
Treat sugar like a recreational drug, basically. Something for occasional use, not a staple. And he's really not a fan of artificial sweeteners either.
Oh, interesting. Why not?
Well, the idea is they can kind of trick your brain. You taste sweet, but don't get the calories, which can sometimes mess with your hunger signals and maybe even your metabolism down the line. It's a bit controversial, but that's his take.
Got it. Okay, another big one, fat. For decades, we were told low fat was the way to go. Dr. Hyman flips that, and the PMC article has some thoughts too.
Oh, absolutely. Hyman points to research, like from Walter Willett at Harvard, suggesting sugar is actually the bigger problem for weight gain, not fat. He even mentions a study where a higher fat vegan diet was more effective for weight loss and heart health markers than a traditional low fat one.
Wow, okay. What does the PMC article say about low-fat diets?
It's nuanced. They acknowledge low-fat diets can lower LDL, the bad cholesterol, in the short term, but they might not be great long-term.
Why not?
Well, they might actually increase triglycerides, another type of fat in the blood you don't want too high. And let's be honest, sometimes very low-fat food just isn't very appealing, which makes it hard to stick to. Palatability is a real factor.
So the message from Hyman is, don't fear fat.
Pretty much, yeah. But the right kind of fat. His success principles are all about eating good fats at every meal.
Like what?
Things like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, coconut oil. And if you eat animal products, organic eggs, grass-fed meats, fatty fish rich in omega-3s, like salmon.
Why are those fats good?
They help you feel full, they're crucial for hormone production, they support metabolism. They're really essential for overall health, not just weight.
Okay, this is important stuff. Now, what about those times when you feel like you're doing everything right with diet and exercise, but still hitting a wall? Healthline and Dr. Hyman talk about hidden obstacles.
Yeah, this is super important because it's not always just about food choices. Healthline mentions medical conditions like hypothyroidism or PCOS.
Right, thyroid issues are pretty common.
Definitely. And certain medications can also cause weight gain or make loss harder. Dr. Hyman broadens this out too.
How so?
He talks about hidden food sensitivities. Gluten and dairy are big ones he flags. They can cause low-grade inflammation that messes with everything.
Inflammation affecting weight.
Yeah. And also gut health.
Yeah.
An imbalance in your gut microbiome, the bacteria in your gut, that can impact your metabolism, your hormones, your inflammation levels. And then there are environmental toxins. He calls them obesogens. Chemicals in plastics, pesticides, household products that might actually disrupt hormones and contribute to weight gain.
Wow, obesogens. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So these are things a standard diet plan completely ignores.
Totally.
What does Hyman suggest if you suspect something like this is going on?
Well, for sensitivities, he might suggest trying an elimination diet, like cut out gluten and dairy for, say, 3 weeks and see how you feel. Any changes.
Okay, simple enough to try.
For gut health, he advises avoiding things that disrupt the gut, like unnecessary antibiotics or certain meds, eating a diet low in sugar and processed stuff that feeds bad bacteria, and maybe adding probiotics or fermented foods.
And the toxins.
Be more aware. Use resources like the Environmental Working Group, the EWG, or the NRDC. They have guides on safer products, food choices, ways to reduce your exposure.
It really shows how weight is tied into overall health, doesn't it? It's not just isolated.
Not at all. It's all connected.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the actual dieting industry. Better Health Management has a pretty critical view on why so many commercial diets seem to fail people.
They do. Their argument is basically that the industry, maybe not deliberately, but effectively benefits from diet failure.
Yeah.
By focusing on quick fixes, short-term results, they often don't address the deeper reasons someone might be struggling with weight, like those hormonal issues we mentioned, or stress, or emotional eating patterns.
So people try a diet, it doesn't stick long term because the root cause isn't fixed, and then they try another diet.
Exactly. It becomes a cycle. And they also point out, again, that very restrictive diets can slow your metabolism, making them unsustainable and setting you up for regain.
So it's less about individual failure and more about maybe the approach itself being flawed.
That's a big part of their argument, yeah. And they also highlight some negative consequences of this constant dieting cycle.
Like what?
Well, that metabolic slowdown we keep mentioning, the survival mode, repeatedly dieting can make it progressively harder to lose weight over time.
The yo-yo effect.
Precisely. That yo-yo dieting isn't just bad for your metabolism and hormones, it takes a toll mentally and emotionally too. Roycroft Davis talks about this as well.
What did you say?
She mentions the psychological side, the intense cravings that come after restriction, the guilt when you break the rules, the feeling of failure. It's a tough cycle.
Definitely sounds familiar for many people. So if strict, restrictive diets often lead to disappointment, what's the alternative? What do our sources suggest for a more sustainable path?
There's a clear shift toward sustainable habits and a more holistic view. Dr. Hyman talks about having a plan, yes, but also designing your environment for success,
Meaning?
like having healthy food readily available, planning for exercise. Simple stuff, but it makes a difference. He also stresses the importance of community and support.
Makes sense. What about better health management?
They advocate for a really comprehensive approach. Personalized nutrition, yes, but also looking at hormone balance, stress management strategies, and ongoing support. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
And Roycroft Davis.
Yeah.
She mentioned mindset.
Yeah, she really emphasizes shifting focus away from just the food rules and more towards your mindset. Things like mindful eating, paying attention to hunger and fullness cues.
Ditching the rigid rules.
Exactly. Building small, sustainable habits like drinking enough water, prepping some healthy snacks, celebrating small wins, and understanding your brain's habit loops to gently retrain them.
That sounds much less stressful, honestly. Now, what about those extreme diets? The PMC article looked at those specifically. Very low carb, very low fat, very low calorie.
Right. That article gives a good overview. It acknowledges potential short-term benefits you might see, like very low carb might improve blood sugar control initially,
Okay.
or very low fat might lower cholesterol for a bit. Very low calorie diets obviously cause rapid weight loss at first, but
There's always a but.
always.
Yeah.
The article spells out the major drawbacks. Risk of nutrient deficiencies is a big one. Sustainability, can you really eat like that forever? Probably not.
And side effects.
Yeah, potential side effects like bone density loss, electrolyte imbalances, gallstones with very low-calorie diets, increased uric acid. It's a list.
So the conclusion there is,
Basically that more balanced, moderately reduced calorie diets combined with exercise are generally safer and more sustainable. And crucially, any diet needs to be individualized. What works for one person might be terrible for another.
which loops back perfectly to another point from Healthline, unrealistic expectations.
Yes, this is huge.
Yeah.
Healthline points out that weight loss is often slow. It's not like the transformations you see on TV or social media.
Right. People expect miracles overnight sometimes.
Exactly. And we often have these idealized body images in our heads that might not even be realistic or healthy for us.
So what's the advice there?
Focus on creating a plan that works for you, that you can stick with. And maybe work on accepting your body, focusing on health markers beyond just the scale, energy, sleep, mood, how your clothes fit.
Health, not just weight.
Precisely. It's about well-being, not just a number.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. If we boil it all down, the reason diets fail so often, it's not really about lacking willpower, is it?
Not usually, no. It seems to be this complex mix of, well, our own biology fighting back, psychological factors, those hidden health issues we might not know about, and just approaches that aren't built for the long haul.
Right. It's much bigger than just eat less.
Definitely. The big takeaway from all these sources really is maybe we need to shift our focus, move away from that cycle of restriction and failure
Towards what?
towards building habits that actually stick, understanding our own bodies better, what works for us, checking for those underlying factors, and just taking a more holistic, long-term view of health.
That feels like a much more positive and, frankly, achievable approach. This has been really insightful.
Good, yeah. It's complex stuff.
So here's something for everyone listening to maybe think about. Given everything we've discussed, the complexity, the high failure rate of old school diets, what's maybe one small science-backed change you could actually make this week? Something focused on long-term health, not just a quick fix on the scale. And maybe the real success isn't hitting some magic number, but redefining what success actually means for your own health journey. What does well-being look like for you?